I think earlier today the patch notes dropped, and I've been working most of the day, so I just got home here a few hours ago, had my dinner, and now I'm actually ready to check out the patch notes. So I've obviously I saw the video a while ago. I might actually have forgotten some of the changes, but I know like quite a few of them from the video, but I haven't actually went through all of the changes here yet. It's going to be quite interesting. I think there's like 30 or 40 new changes compared to what we saw in the video. So hopefully it's going to be something interesting. So to start off with, it's patch 8.5. We are getting Triss as our new journey character. That was kind of to be expected after we had Yen as the last one, right? 8.5 also brings balance changes that focus on 3 goals, making the weaker stratagem stronger and more tempting to choose for your deck, buffing some of the less popular leaders and making them more versatile, and balancing new cards released in 8.3. Okay, that's pretty cool. To top it off, we introduce new starter decks, aiming to make it easier and more entertaining for new players to join the game. Okay, that's fine, if you're a new player, I guess. And I think some of these changes we've already seen, but let's go through them anyway. So, Enchanted Arm, to start off with. So, this one is boosting, used to boost by 3, but now it's also giving 2 armor. So I'm wondering, what's the advantage of also getting some armor? I mean, I guess if you're playing some sort of like engine, let's say you're playing maybe like a Visagotha, that could be pretty cool. I guess if you're playing something like... I guess if you're just playing a deck where armor is worth something, it's kind of a good carryover play. Like maybe you're playing Dwarfs. Some Dwarfs, they can like the value from armor is like almost 1-to-1. So potentially this card could just reach, buff a unit in your hand by 5 points. Hey JV Bess. So I mean I think this card is definitely decent now, could potentially be quite strong also in some tournaments for red coin. Or just decks that already have pretty high tempo around 1 and, I just want to play for some carryover. Then we got Ceremonial Dagger. Yeah, there we have it. So, give an enemy unit bleeding by 5, and now it's getting changed to damage it by 3 and give it bleeding 2. So this is obviously better because it's faster to get the effect. Red coin. Okay, true. That was kind of okay, forget what I just said. Obviously the stratagems have a blue coin only, but it's good if you have a deck that has very high tempo originally and don't care too much about getting the carry. I guess otherwise you could use it in something like Redea, but that doesn't really make much sense to slam on red coin either. So let's just forget about that comment. I still don't think this card is going to be any good, because we already have this card right here, Color, and that's not even seen playing Nilfgaard right now, right? So I kind of doubt that it will really do much anyway. Because on blue coin you quite often want to be proactive, you want to play points, and if the opponent is just kind of playing no unit stuff, it's kind of hard to actually get value from his stratagem. But there might be some decks where it can be good against. I mean, it would be good against a ship against Skellige, right? They play a ship, you just like kill it almost in 2 turns at least. So it's not bad. It's definitely better than before, but I still doubt it will see much play. Maybe if you're playing like some sort of deck where you have like dames that get value from statuses, or yeah, maybe vampire value as well, right? Could also be an option. So there are a few situations, but for the most part I think it's pretty bad. And you would at least need to have a deck that's very, very proactive. Then we have Cursed Scroll. So it is changed to draw a card of your choice and put a card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. So right now, just look at the top 3 cards. So it's basically the same, except you can choose random cards from your entire deck. And again, that's a pretty big difference, right? So like you're getting 1 thin from this, and you get to choose a specific card. So you're running some sort of deck that's very, very combo dependent. I think Cursed Scroll could be a solid choice. Like we're probably talking something like Ceres, Lepidex. Like that could make sense, right? You're very dependent on getting your Ceres round 1. You have a bunch of bricks. This would make some sense. Although like giving up 5 points of tempo is kind of a big deal, so I'm not entirely sure how much play this will see. Can't really think of any other decks right now. Maybe, okay, actually, I guess there's one thing, that's Vi. So, if you play this, it's actually really good with Vi, right? So, like, basically, you play a Consume, you play your Vi from hand, you eat the Vi, and then you play the Curse Roll, you take the Vi back in hand again. So, that's pretty powerful, actually. I guess it means you're not running Crystal Skull, which is usually used to protect your engines, so it's kind of a hard decision to make. It depends a bit on your build you're making, but I mean, Curse Skull could definitely make sense in Lippy. In Vi. And you guys think that Crystal Skull is kind of necessary right now? Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, right? Being able to buff your Slizzard out of removal range is quite important, but, you know, maybe. We will have to wait and see. But yeah, definitely, I mean, I like these changes generally, because you're just taking cards that are really not seeing much play, giving them some buffs, and now you actually have the decision to make when choosing your strategy. Before it was just, you know, you just took whatever. That's Curse Scroll, and we have Armory. I believe it's in this one. So now this is a location. So basically, it's actually doing the exact same thing as before. Like, you're still boosting it by 3, you're giving it 3 armor, but the difference is now that the armor doesn't have to be used right away, and you can actually carry it over to a different round. So the one deck where I see this could be good in is something like Kelly, because like a card like Parasite and Pax are great in Kelly. And quite often you want to play this. Well, these cards just, you know, don't play any units, buff your engines out of removal range. And the ability to keep the armor on like an order you can use at the turn you play another card is quite powerful. Let's say you're going up against a deck that plays some removal cards like, I don't know, Parasite. Maybe you're up against Precision Strike and they have Rebukes. Being able to give armor to your Nithral or to your Beast without having to use leader charges on them can just be really powerful, I think. You guys are mentioning Dwarfs as well. I mean, that is true. Could maybe make sense in Dwarfs. I think Dwarfs are still just pretty much fundamentally bad. But in theory, then yes, you could use this in combination, like, together with Dwarfs. Okay. Next up, we have Regis. Provisions changed from 13 to 12. And, I mean, I don't think that's a massive deal. It could kind of have some sort of... I mean, Regis is still just bad, right? Can you guys still hear me? Because I think my computer just kind of crashed. I can still read chat and stuff, but I can't actually do anything. At least not to Gwent. Oh, it's back. Perfect. Never mind. I'll just look up Regis real quick. Can hear though? Okay, that's good. I think we should be back now, right? Not sure what happened. So, this card is really bad. Remove initiative, add adrenaline to Regis. So you would do like the reverse adrenaline, right? So it has to be played early in the round, right? Because the other way wouldn't really make much sense, I don't think. And yeah, I mean, I agree. This card is not very powerful. With the initiative, it's just it's just awkward. Like, it's very rare the opponent randomly lines this sort of stuff up, and it's so hard to set it up with like beforehand. Giving a buff with 13 to 12, I mean, that's fine, but honestly, it should probably be like 10p before you even would consider running this in this meta. So, I mean, it's fine they're doing it, but it would require more to make Regis see play, I think. Then we have Land of 1,000 Fables. Okay. So it used to just play any special card from your deck. Now it's Location. It has Resilience. And let me just check. Play a special card from your deck. So the playability is still the same, but now you can also transform a special card in your hand into a random unit of the same provision cost from the same faction. And Wicked coming with a sub. Thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, I mean, basically, it's very bad, right? This is not going to see any competitive play, I don't think. I guess the sort of thing you can do is that if you're in a situation where you have played your first one Ironmancy, you're going to run 3, you don't have anything good left in deck, and you have this Land of Thousand Fables in your hand, then you can be like, okay, I'll just transform my Oneiromancy, and then you look at the 13p pool, and then you can choose between, well, you can't choose, but then you will get like Kelly, Drork, Oak, Regis. I mean, that's decent, right? Realistically, no, it's not going to see any play, I don't think. But it's a cool change. It's probably something that you could do some cool content out of, meme decks, that sort of stuff. Oh, it's the same faction as the special card, right? Okay. Okay, so maybe you can actually like choose sometimes. Like I guess quite often if you use it on Oneiromancy, then you will only be able to get Kelly. So maybe you use this to run like double Kelly, I guess. Could you do that? Is that actually something you could do? It's like you just guarantee that you can run like 2 of the same card. I don't think you can get another Oneiro because it specifies same faction, right? It transforms a special card in your hand into a random unit of the same provision cost from the same faction. So you can take any special card and transform it into a random unit from your faction. So that means that, I mean, yeah, if you use it in NR, it gives you another Drork. In Scoia'tael, it would give you another Triant. In Monster, it would give you another Kelly. And I guess that's the only 13 provision pools you have. But that's actually a pretty interesting combo, right? I mean, that's actually not bad when you think about it. Like, just having this, like, you can just run double Kelly, basically. You run that card, and you're like, okay, you have 2 Kellys. It does obviously require you to draw your Oneiromancy, stuff like that. But, I mean, having 2 Kellys could be pretty pog, not gonna lie. And that could actually be something I would like to try out. Okay, then you have Operator. And Operator is just getting a simple buff here, going from 5 to 6 provisions. From 8 to 7 provisions, I believe. Unless it's the same faction as a special, not your faction. Wait, what? You don't get Kelly? Wait, what am I missing? Why would not give Kelly? Oneiro transform to 13p neutral. Oh. Oh, because it's look. Oh, okay, I see. Ah, right. Okay, well, never mind everything I just said then about Kelly. Then it's just absolutely trash again. I actually thought you could do that combo, but I mean, I guess if it's only neutrals you will get, then yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. Anyway, moving on. I'm looking at Operator here. Then yeah, I mean, we all know what Operator does. You can play this in Mill. I haven't actually seen any other deck than Mill played. I guess you could play it in some sort of Enforcer deck as well. But yeah, I mean, the card was kind of overcosted. Maybe it can find some ways into some decks now. I kind of like the card. So yeah, that's a fine change. Armor's Workshop. Let's see. I have never seen this card played. I don't even know what it does. And Crozier coming with a sub for 11 months, not even a full year. Thanks a lot, Crozier. I hope you're doing well, man. Yeah, we're just going through all the changes from the patch notes. I haven't had a chat to look through them yet. So this one is boosting 3 days in units by 2 and give them 1 armor, and now it's going to be give them 2 armor. Yeah, I mean, again, the sort of decks you think about are probably Dwarfs, right? Again, the issue probably is the Dwarfs are pretty damn bad. But I mean, like, in terms of stat-wise, it's not terrible, right? 6 points, and if you say 1 armor is worth half a point, then it's technically 9 for 5, right? Yeah, you kind of want to play it with Monroe, right? I could see that. I think the issue with this deck is just, like, it's not that this card is bad, it's just that the cards it wants to support are kind of bad. Traveling Merchant. So this card is now a 5 for 5. Shuffle a card from your hand into your deck, then draw a card. yeah, I mean, this card is... Like, this was the card that was bugged when it first came out, right? And I think it could, like, give you card advantage or something like that. But since then, it kind of just disappeared. And yeah, I mean, would you play this if this was 4p? 5 points? I don't even know. Maybe. But still, right now, it's still not very, very playable. I don't think we're going to see this card be played at all. Sorry, guys. Then we have Wagenburg. This is also a card that I've seen very, very little play. Although the ability isn't bad in itself. Provision change from 5 to 4. That makes it a lot easier to justify running this card. Like, obviously coming down as, 3 for 4, it's not great. But, 3 armor as well, so if you want to kill it, it's really expensive. And the fact that it gives 2 armor per turn can be quite strong. So, maybe you could see this playing some Ancient decks. Where you start off with this and then just start playing Ancient next to it. Basically just boosting everything out of removal range. Like, again, a lot of these cards on their own, they still look kind of meh. But if you add all this new armor synergy up together, I mean, maybe. Then we got Iris Shade. Remove units' armor and boost self by that amount. Okay, so this is a payoff card to all this armor boost, right? So now, I mean, in theory, again, if all of these armor cards, you say armor is worth half a point, like, this actually makes it 1 armor worth 1 point, but you start at minus 5 points in value in the difference between power and provision cost. So, yeah, I'm not convinced, right? I guess it's only 4 points difference now, but also the issue is that you can only target 1 unit. Like, maybe if this could target a row or 3 adjacent units, then it would be a lot more interesting, right? Because a lot of these new cards, like the Workshop and the Wagenburg, they give armor to several units, right? So, like, if you could combine that together, this would potentially be a very, very strong finisher. Then we've got Iris Companions. They're actually all already here. Draw a card of your choice from your deck, then discard a random card, and that's changed into draw a card of your choice, then discard a random card. If you have Iris in hand, choose which card to discard instead. This is interesting, right? This is very interesting. So basically, if you play this together with an Iris card, which would probably be this Iris, unless you're playing an armor deck, of course, then you can choose what card to discard. So, like, you could even get rid of, like, a Skirm or something like that. Like, isn't this card kind of good? Couldn't you use this in, like, Don't you play this in Lippy now, actually? You play this, you can just draw, a Skirm or something like that. Just discard that. Discard the Morkvarg. Or, just get access to your Ceres if you have Iris in hand already. I feel like this card could be okay. Because, like, Iris, like, when you think about it, all you have to do to run this card, obviously you need to draw your Iris, but if you draw it, then, 9 for 6. That's not bad. It kind of doesn't synergize, but, it's Lippy. You just slam some cards, right? I kind of want to try a Lippy deck with this one, actually. Especially together with the new Cowl that we're going to look at later. So that's pretty nice. Also, by the way, Crozier, how did your climbing go today? If you're still here. Okay, so Mitabraker used to be an 8 for 8. And now it's actually getting a double buff. Power is changed to 5 and provision changed from 8 to 7. Okay, that's actually rather huge. Like, now it's a 9 for 7 now? That's actually decent, no? I'm not quite sure what sort of deck you would play this in, but, like, this is not looking bad. 9 for 7. Sure, you break Devotion and stuff like that, but, like, if you could play this card in Skellige Warriors, let's say it was a Skellige Warrior, right? Then you would probably play this card. So, maybe. Yeah. Especially if you can get some Dragon Synergy going. 3 games off peak for monsters, which is not bad, starting at 80 MMR off yesterday. Oh, that's nice. You'll get that close, yeah, I'm sure. Okay. Run it with Immune Dragon and Ike. Yeah, I mean, that's true, right? You can run this with Ike, right? I haven't seen that card in ages either. But I mean, this is just troll removal for 8 provision, right? So maybe I could kind of see this. I'm not entirely sure if it will see play, but like the combo potential is definitely there. I was told in my last video that I'm way too pessimistic about changes, so we will try to be a little bit more excited today, guys, and see if we can find some cool combos. You can use this card to kill both young dryads from Ithne unless you use leader. They will never use leader, don't worry. Okay, monsters. So we have Detlef. Double T, right? Okay, so which Detlef is it? It's this one. Initial Blood Moon duration changed from 1 to 2. So yeah, this card, okay, this is different than we saw, wasn't it? So now this is basically just stating that if you play this without any vampires, you apply 2 Blood Moon. And that's it, right? So basically, no setup, this is just Blood Moon is worth how much? 2 points per turn, right? So this is a 10 for 10 with no setup. But if you run 2, like if you have 2 adjacent vampires, it's going to be a 14 for 10. And you will be able to have engine value afterwards, right? This makes it seem like 4 max, but the stream made it seem like 5 max. Yeah, I think they changed the wording. I think it means 4 max here. I think this card, I mean, this card was already decent before. I think it's going to be very, very good now. I've said this before. I don't think it's Detlef and Unseen Elder that are holding back vampires. It's just the rest of the archetype and the fact that it requires so many units to be good on the opponent side of the board. But yeah, this is good. This is a good card, no doubt. Especially combined with like Crimson Curse. Then we have the Unseen Elder. And one thing to note about this change, where it's going from 5 to 6 provision, is that this is 1 point, but it's one very, very important point. A card at 5 strength is super, super easy to remove. At 6 strength, it's very hard to remove. So this simple buff just makes the entire deck work so much smoother, because now all of a sudden, if they want to deal with Unseen Elder, obviously they can lock it or whatever. But if they don't have a lock, you know, they can double poison it, that'll take some time. Or they will have to heat wave it, right? Use a toll removal on it. And you know, if you use toll removal on Unseen Elder, then maybe your other cards will go through. Maybe your Eager and your Oswald's go through. Maybe your Oriana go through. So, you know, this is a card that could be very scary. Then we have Arcus Ball. So, Arcus Ball... Power change from 2 to 4. Ability change 2. Deathwish. Summon all copies of this unit from your deck to the throw, right? So this is the new Foglet, right? This is basically what this card is doing right now. So summon all copies of this unit from your deck to your row. So there's just like a card swap. But then we're getting a new ability for Foglet, which now says Deathwish, spawn Fog on the opposite row for 3 turns. This is very interesting because I think this is the first like 4P Deathwish unit that has an effect that's worth 6 points. Now, obviously, you know, Fog damages the lowest unit on the opponent's side of the board. It's maybe not super consistent in terms of, you know, you need people to play in that row. If they have odd value, you'll only get half the value from it. But still, like, the card is, you know, it can also be used for removal. Like, if the opponent's playing engines, you play Fog. Like, that's kind of strong. Yeah, so Fog means that you're damaging the lowest unit on the opponent's side of the board by 2 on that row. So like it's used to kill stuff. So I think the Foglet is definitely a good card. I'm wondering if it won't be used in like all in consume decks, or if you would also just like play it in some decks that just have like a few triggers. Like what if you just run double Foglet, double Draga Warrior? Would that be enough to be able to get the combo going? Because like the payoff is quite huge in this one. Alright, then we have the Ancient Foglet, which we have right next to it here. Power change from 1 to 4. Provisions change from 4 to 6. Ability change 2. Boost self by the total duration of row effect on the opponent's side. whenever you apply a row effect, boost self-patch duration. Okay. So just to clear this one up, then it has nothing to do with the row you're playing this card on, the way I understand it. But whenever you play this card, you just get like an additional point of value from all the row effects you have. I don't think this is the sort of card you would ever want to run more than one of, because 2 is just getting too much, especially for 6 exploration. I could be wrong here. Maybe if you build like all-in weather, maybe it's worth it. But it's like the thing is that your weather effect gets worse and worse each turn as well, right? So ideally you play all your weather and then you play this. But the issue is, then you have to play the weather. What, you want to play it early so you can get all of it down. But then what if they row stack or something, right? Then you're not getting value from your weather. But I guess this is just a way of like compensating a bit. And I guess like, you know, you play Crimson Curse, and then you play Ancient Foglet maybe. And then already here, if you played the turn after, then this is an 8 for 6, right? Then you have an 8 for 6, and maybe you just have, you know, 1 or 2 other weather cards. And then this is okay, right? And I do agree that you would probably be running bruisers in this sort of deck to get good value from it. But yeah, I mean, I think this card would be better at 5p and then maybe lower base strength than 6p, because it's just such an awkward provision to run. But yeah, I think like if weather is good, then it's not necessarily the Ancient Fog that will hold them back. It's probably just the design of that archetype. And I also agree with you, J. William James, that it would be nice if Bruiser just worked with any weather, not Frost only. That would make a lot of the other weather cards more playable. Okay, then let's move down here. So we have the Cyclops. And the Cyclops quite simply is not restricted to melee row anymore. First of all, I think this is a great change. I don't think the Cyclops should be restricted to the melee row. But second of all, this card is still garbage. There's a few ways they could change this. They could make it 4p, but 4p would probably be too strong, to be honest, given that you have Draco Warrior at 4. And this card, you know, basically doing the same thing, but being able to target stuff, maybe that's too strong. But making it 5 strength instead, then you could consider it. I think if you have like a 5 for 5 consumer that can also kill stuff, maybe that's okay. Do I think Cyclops will be competitive? No, I don't think so. Like, you could always play your Deathwish stuff front row anyway. Sometimes it may be a little bit awkward, but in general you could. And this didn't see any play. But yeah, basically 5 strength, 5 provision, no melee condition. Then it would be a consideration in some decks. Right now, no, I don't think we'll see it. Unfortunately, because I do like the idea of, you know, having to play around a card like Cyclops. You know, like you're playing engines, the opponent's playing like units, and then you have to decide, okay, if they played like a 10-point unit, let's say, then maybe you don't care if they use the Cyclops to kill your 5-point engine, because then they're overkilling it. But if they play a 5-point card, then maybe you can just buff your engine out of removal range. So like there's a lot of mind game going on with the Cyclops being competitive, which it just won't be right now. So now then we have Maruna, and this is a pretty nice change, I think. So now this card is 5 power, and like this card is not bad. Like seizing a 4 power engine can be incredibly powerful. Obviously Old Conquer got nerfed because of Vi, which I till this day still don't understand why they decided to nerf Old Conquer instead of just focusing on Vi, but you know, that's how it is. And I mean, Maruna is a good card. Like if you're playing Old Conquer with Maruna, you're good. And especially the new Urn of Shadows, which I think is the next card on our list, is going to potentially make this a lot better. So let's try to find Urn of Shadow here. So now this, instead of only working on bronze allied units, it will also be working on gold units. So that means that obviously you can use it on blue coin, but I guess in general, like you don't really want to commit your Maruna round 1. I mean, you can sometimes, but it's like a very powerful card. So I think honestly what you could consider doing is to run Redea in this sort of deck, where, you know, you just have this Urn of Shadows for later on. So like you go into round 3, you start with Redea, the opponent plays a unit, maybe a 4 strength engine, and then, you know, you play a Maruna, you activate it, and then they play another unit, and then you consume it. Obviously it means they have a turn to then deal with your Maruna, so there's some counterplay, but I think this with Dea could be really, really strong. Also together with something like Manticore, potentially. Alright. So now then we have Eredin. And Eredin is kind of sad, right? Because it's a card that... He's supposed to be like the big final boss of Witcher 3, right? And now he's just kind of sad. It's a good that they're buffing him to 6 provisions. 6 power, because it means, again, he's not dying to random damage. But it's still just not very good, right? It's 6, and then to say both of your frost go through with dominance, it's a 12 for 10. And I do understand you can play more frost to get more value from it, and you also have a leader that supports it. But I'm not sold here, I'll be honest. I think... Again, maybe it's not this card, it's just the rest of the weather archetype here that might be a problem, but we're getting a lot of weather buffs, so maybe it will see some play, but I very much doubt this will be competitive either. Then Skellige. I think we got some very, very exciting changes here, to be honest. First we got a Reckless Flurry. No? I guess it's not it's a lead ability, right? So you won't pop up here. I guess you have to go in here. Yeah. Okay. So, right now it's just splitting 8 random damage between all the immunes. And this leader had 2 issues right now. First of all, well, it does require you to run a deck that is quite proactive, because if you end up like without, let's say, the opponent goes no unit, then you can't really deal with them. Like you just have a dead leader. And second of all, like all of your leader is tied into one play, which, I mean, that's not necessarily an issue, but it's definitely a drawback compared to some other leaders that can split it up. Now, it's not only getting more value, you're getting 3 charges of 3 damage each, but you can also split it up. So that means that, you know, sometimes you just need a few extra points to do the points, right? Like let's say you're playing ice right now. Quite often you're getting bled. At some point you might just have to slime your ice, and then you overcome it by a shit ton. With this leader, it's more like, okay, you can just like play the catch-up game, and at some point maybe use 1 leader charge to catch up, get ahead, stuff like that. Gives a lot of flexibility, makes it a lot more easy to win uneven in certain situations. And I mean, if you go up against engine decks, then this is amazing, right? Like the opponent plays an engine, just use like a leader charge, you know, Blood Eagle or a Marauder. And obviously you can also use it together with something like Dagger, although Dagger rarely plays that well into this sort of deck because it's like your only deck going tall. You could try to build something like that with like Defender, Cleaver, but I mean, at least just for normal Skellige, I think this will be a strong ability. Will it be better than Iced? Maybe. What you have to remember with Ice as well is that he's getting nerfed. He's now getting changed from Bloodthirst 2 to Bloodthirst 3. And if you look at Iced without the Bloodthirst condition fulfilled, then in round 3 he's a 17-point play, which is obviously good, but it also requires you to run Utah, which is 8 provision. So that's like 4 provisions you're spending instead of having another good card. And you have to run a leader, which sometimes isn't very good either. So, you know, definitely a consideration depending on the meta. Against something like AQ, there's no doubt this would be significantly better. So how would you compare Flurry to OG Rage of the Sea? Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, Rage of the Sea was kind of similar, right? Rage of the Sea had the advantage of giving points from the board, also dealing some damage. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar, I do agree. This one also has more provisions now than Rage of the Sea has currently. Rage of the Sea right now is not very good. The nerfs they made to it just kind of killed it, but I think this will be exciting to play around with at least. Ice to 17 plus damage. Well, the damage doesn't come from Ice, it comes from Leader. So you should give all the value from the damage to the Leader. And then Ice is only 17 points. And in round 2 it's only 16 points, round 1 is only 15 points. Now round 1 is not that important, but round 2, like 16 points is good, but it also requires your Leader commitment. So, you know. Anyway. Mask of Uruburus. I hope I didn't butcher that. Mask of Uruburus. So it's basically doing the same thing, but now it's giving us 2 crows instead of a single one. So, I mean, that's good. That's definitely good. Like, why would you not run this card anymore? Like, if you're running Lamp before, then basically you're getting 1 less point of tempo, but you're getting a discard as well. This discard might synergize with your Coral, it might synergize with your Snowdrop, and it might, I mean, absolutely worst case, it's just 1 thin, which is probably worth 1 point anyway. And you also, like, there's some I guess there's also some synergies with crows to some extent. So, yeah, this is just really good. I think this is like the new default in Skellige decks. But it depends a bit on what sort of deck you're playing, of course. But I think even without any synergies, if you're just playing like a completely normal deck that doesn't care about discards, crows, or anything like that, I think it's just good. In Lip, you might not be able to play it due to melee clock. Right. That's a good point. I mean, so in that case, there might be some situations where it's awkward, right? Because you're making your deck worse when you go Lippy, but at the same time, getting 1 discard might also be worth it because you might already be playing Snowdrop, right? So it's a call. Quite often you go Lippy round 3 anyway, but obviously if you do it earlier, you're kind of clocking your own deck. Okay, then we have Coral. This change I'm also very, very excited about. So Coral goes from 5 to 6 power, but it's also now drawing before it's discarding, and it's not limited to special cards anymore. So, I mean, you know, Coral is just good. Like, you play her, first of all, she goes out of common removal range at 5, so she's hard to kill. She's playing as an 8 for 8, with 1 thin, which is probably also worth around 1 additional point. And then she's an engine, right? So, you know, you play some of these cards, Mask of Uruburus, you play some Scalds, maybe play the new Iris. Like, there's so many cards that just turns this into a machine gun. Obviously, it's damage, it's random, you won't always be able to kill anything that's worth something, but, you know, I think Coral is good. I think she's really good. You don't want to play her just as a one-off, but they're definitely, like, you're running the discard package, I can guarantee you're also going to be playing Coral. Very excited to try Coral out, that's for sure. Dire Bear. Berserk 7, effect on the opposite row. I don't think this is particularly important. It means that, you know, the row you're also playing your Dire Bear on, then if you manage to damage this, then it won't affect yourself. But, I mean, you could just play your units in the other row, right? And obviously maybe your second bind defender, that's why you want to play them there. And maybe there are some cool synergies there, but yeah, I don't see this card being particularly good. The ability is just not that great right now. Could be good against Vi. I mean, if you're only playing this, it will just play the Vice in the other row, right? So you kind of have to figure out, I mean, how do you punish that? Do you want to run Erden as well? And then, I mean, yeah, you have to run Erden as well. I mean, what if they bleed you, right? It's very combo heavy, too expensive cards. I don't think it's going to see much change, but I mean, see much play, but it's a fine change. 1 second. Alright. Then we got Iced. Apparently I cannot spell to Iced. So Ice is doing the exact same thing, but this is changed from 2 to 3. And obviously, this is kind of like a minor change. It's not very hard to understand what changed in this card, but it will have quite an impact on the metagame, I think, because Ice was one of the decks, together with Lion Pocket, that had the highest win rate throughout the season. I think it might be dropping a little bit here towards the end of the season, but overall it's been very, very good. And Ice is obviously a big part of the success. And I don't know. This is definitely a nerf. I mean, there's no arguments there. I don't think it's the worst nerf in the world, actually, because if you consider how they would change it otherwise, it would be like adapting the provision or stuff like that. But it's the like in a longer round, Bloodthirst 3 can even be hard to get. Bloodthirst 2 is fairly easy, so it means that like bleeding it will be easier without giving you the extra value from it. And I mean, so basically you can ask yourself, would you play Ice without the without the Bloodthirst ability, right? Would you play Ice if it quite simply just let you summon your Utah together with Leader? I think the answer is no. I think you quite often want to get this payoff, even though it might only happen like half of your games right now, maybe more, it depends a bit. And now it's going to get harder, so I think that the change is definitely fine. And I think it also might mean that people will start playing Reckless Fury again. But yeah, maybe you could also increase the provision by 1, but it could also be killing it a little bit too much. Alright. Then we have Krach and Crate. So I think the card does the same thing, except it now also got a damage ability on order, which means that every second turn you can damage unit by 1. Now, I'm still not entirely sure how strong this deployability is, giving some armor to some pirates and ships, and then you can use them to damage the lowest enemy power. Like, I'm just not sure if the pirates and ship cards are there. At least I don't think anyone managed to make a successful Krach deck this season. The buff to Krach is quite huge, like making it an engine that is dealing damage as well is huge. That's very, very powerful. And it's very easily to meet its value in terms of provision, right? Because like you play it. Now what do you do to it? Like if you heatwave it, then you trade 10p for 10p, but you have 1/6 armor basically on your engines. And if they don't, it's just going to play for really, really good value. But yeah, I think we need some better pirates and better ships. Maybe not the ships. You have okay ships already, but you probably need more playable pirates. And then I think this card could be good. Well, the card is good, but yeah, the pirates are not there yet. Then we got armor up. Okay, and what's changed here? Provision change from 5 to 4. 5 to 4 provision changes are huge as well, because now you don't have to pay anything to include this. 4p is the cheapest you can get. And this card is not bad. It just always felt like, you know, you have to run this card. If you don't have your payoff cards, then it wasn't that great. So basically you're dealing 2 damage. And then you're getting 3 points, right? So you're playing a 5 for 4 now. But if you're playing Mentors, if you're playing Arnachat, cards like that, like this card is just plus so many points. So I think for 4p it's the card you just put into a deck. It's also a raid, so you can shoot it with Vabion. So you can put it into a deck, and you know, if you have some of your payoff cards, you can keep it. Otherwise you can just mull it. Like, you're not forced to keep this card anymore because it's 4p. So yeah, good change. Definitely going to push some of these decks, and maybe not like maybe we will see other decks than just Skellige Warriors for Skellige. Then we have Totem. And Totem got a very minor buff, sorry. Now its location has resilience. And this sort of card where you mean like, why would you play the order ability if you don't have your fanatics next to it? And that can be a situation, right? Like maybe you're playing some sort of self-wound deck where it's actually beneficial for you to damage yourself. In the classic warrior archetype, it probably won't have any sort of impact. You can trigger Ceres with Totem now. I mean, not Ceres, right? But you can trigger your Shield Maidens and that sort of stuff. So like you can do some things with it. For the most part, I don't think it's going to change too much for this card. It's still just a solid proactive play. It's kind of bad right now because of how much Nilfgaard there is on ladder, and they just brick it. So it's just an 8 for 10. But obviously, like I mean, it's an okay change, and maybe you can find some synergies with it. But for the most part, it won't make much of an impact, I don't think. Then next up, we have Quartermaster, and this is actually a pretty big change, I think. So Quartermaster is now gaining Seal. So before, this card was a card you never really wanted to include in your deck because, you know, 4 for 5, it dies to any sort of damage really. And you know, you would just rather run Warriors, or if you were running like a 5p card, you would rather run a Bear Witcher. But now this card on deploy with no synergies whatsoever, it's a 6 for 5 with arm. 6 for 5, not great, okay? But it's doing things for your deck. It's getting your Bloodthirst on your own side of the board, which can improve some of your mentors. If you have armored units or a Fanatic or something like that you wasn't able to trigger with your Totem, then this is also a good change, right? Because now, all of a sudden, you're not damaging anything that cares about being damaged, so you're playing an 8 for 5. In theory, you could also do this with something like Draco Turtle, where your damage is actually worth additional points on the target you hit. Then it could be a 10 for 5. So basically, with no setup at all, 6 for 5. With armor, it's an 8 for 5. With some sort of payoff cards, it's a 10 for 5. So, you know, you have to figure out, is your deck suited for this? But I think it will definitely see play. I'd be very surprised if this saw no play at all. Yeah, and obviously, like, if you're running, like, also just having as a Caduce option, then quite often you kind of had to play Caduce early if you didn't have enough proactive plays. Your Bear Witcher was dead. Mentor was not enough setup, and Adept was just a little bit meh. Now you can just go Quartermaster, play it as a solid 6 or 7 or 8, and then you can maybe even set up your Caduce as well. So yeah, that's a good card, no doubts about that. Then we have Terror Crew Plunderer. Is that this guy? No, it's this guy. So power change from 2 to 3. So now it's a 3 power unit, damaging units by 2 if it's an ally, boost self by 4. Yeah. I don't think it's great, honestly. It's a pirate, which I guess makes Krach a little bit better. And I get Krach gives armor, so maybe like if you use this on another card with armor, then I guess it's kind of just 4. I guess it's an 8 for 4 then. No, it's a 7 for 4, right? Which is not great. I mean, 7 for 4 is good, but it seems a little bit clunky for a 7 for 4. 9 for 4 on Turtle? Yeah, that's true. I don't think this card is going to be any good. Unless I'm missing some obvious synergies. Then we've got the Axe Wielder. This is this guy. Power change from 2 to 3. So now it's a 5 for 4. Okay, so I guess the idea is you play this card first, and you expose it, and then it deals damage again. So I guess like these cards got pretty nice synergy together. I mean, maybe. So okay, let's say you open with this card. Then okay, I'm going to be playing a 5 for 4. Then you play this afterwards. Then you're playing a 7 for 4. That also makes this a 7 for 4, right? So you're technically playing 2 4-piece for 14 points. That's good, actually. That's not bad. The question is, like, is this any good if you don't have the combo? And probably not, right? But it's actually kind of interesting to try this out. Like, could this be good? Maybe you put in your Krach as well, because, you know, now you actually have some playable pirates. So maybe. We'll have to wait and see. Then we got Harold, Houndsnut. Yeah, true. We can use it with the Quartermaster as well. There's actually quite a few interesting synergies there. And this guy's getting a provision buff from 9 trade. Okay, so this is more self-wound synergy. Because this is obviously another target you can use your pings on. So you can make it a 7 for 4 that triggers one of these Houndsnuts. I guess one of the pals. And yeah, I mean, that's decent. So this card comes down as a 7 for 8. But every time you click one of these, it's technically plus 1 additional point. So technically it's a 10 for 8. If you can trigger them with your Herald, but if you can use other cards to trigger them, they could be worth more potentially, depending on the card. This card used to be very popular back in the days, but it has kind of fallen off the meta. I could honestly see it being quite okay again. Not gonna lie, guys. This is playable. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this change. Like, just making this card slightly better, and it's kind of a unique card as well. So yeah, I think this card could be good. Looking forward to that. Then we got Northern Realms. And first off, we got a lead ability, which is Pincer Maneuver. Ability change 2. Draw a Northern Realms card of your choice and shuffle a card from your hand back into your deck and spawn a volunteer in your melee row. Okay. So your leader is only playing for 4 points of value. But you get full access to your deck. So the way I would look at this would be to say, okay, you don't have to run a card like Oniromancy because you have so much consistency in your leader. You'll also make it easier for you to set up like crew pockets. But obviously 4 points is very little, but it means you can run Drog instead of an Oniromancy, right? What if you jam Siege and Draw with this leader? Yeah, that is something you could do, right? I mean, maybe not necessarily those 2 cards, but it basically gives you 1 high-end card for free because you don't have to run their own Iromancy. But obviously, if you want to use your consistency round 1, then like you're also losing the few points you actually have from leaders. So not entirely sure if this card will see any play, but it's definitely a lot better than this right now. So yeah, like if you make some sort of devotion deck with this, maybe it would be okay. I'm a little bit hesitant still. I still think the leader value is too bad. 4 points from your leader is really not a lot. But then again, not having to run an Iromancy, that's also really good. So I will have to wait and see. Then we got King Faltus. King Faltus. I love this King Faltus change as well, by the way. King Faltus. So, I guess the change is, first of all, that it's losing 1 power from 7 to 6. It's losing 1 provision, well, gaining 1 provision, depending on how you look at it, from 12 to 11. So, you lose the strength, you gain 1 provision. It kind of evens out. The important thing here is that it's still above removal range. Like 6 means that it's still not going to die to rebukes and boiling oils and all these sort of cards. But it's now an engine as well. So each turn it's also boosting 1 card by 1, like a drummer. So on deploy it's a 7 for 11, okay? That's not great. But you have to remember that you can use this together with commandos or on banners. And now you don't need other like combo cards to make it work. So you just play this Faltus on a commando or done banner. And already there, like if you use it on done banner, you get what, like a 4-point unit out of your deck? Yeah, it should be like 4 points, right? So that's quite good. And it's actually, if it's devotion is +1, right? So it could actually be I guess it's 4, right? It's 4 plus the boost you're getting. So in that case, it's 4 plus your 7 points, so it's an 11 for 11. And it's a pretty scary engine each turn for potentially 4 additional points. So Faltus is good, but it requires you to run specific cards. Will those specific cards be good enough? We'll have to wait and see, but I'm definitely excited to try out Faltus myself. Then we have Queen Meave. And Meave has probably been like the biggest joke of the Gwent community here for the past month or 2. Like the card was released, no one really thought it was any good. After trying it out for 2 months, no one still seems to think it's any good. It's getting a few buffs now. I'm still not convinced this will make it super strong, but it's definitely better. So it's a soldier now. King Faltus is actually also a soldier, which I guess makes it easier to set up crew pockets, but other than that, it's not that important. So before, when the counter reached 0 for Meave, she just stopped working. Now she can actually work several times. So ideally, you play her one of your first 2 turns around 3. And then every 3rd turn, she will give you a boost on the entire board. That in itself is obviously very strong. But it requires her to be inspired, which means you probably want to run it together with Uprising. Which is a strong leader, so it doesn't have to be that big of a drawback. But you always have to keep her boosted. And that might be tough. Sometimes she just gets removed. So I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, but she's a lot more playable now because she's also gaining armor whenever you boost her. So if you're up against Skellige and you just try to like damage her, then you can just boost her again and she will get armor. So she could be a card you played in some sort of engine overload / swarm hybrid. Because if she's only an engine, you just heatwave her, right, or lock her, whatever. But if you have several, I mean, she'll probably be good. Then we got Poor Fucking Infantry. I also love this change, not gonna lie. Poor Fucking Infantry. So it used to be a very, very boring card. Boost self by 4. 5 for 4. Really bad, really sad. Nothing exciting about this card. But now, power is changed from 1 to 3. And you're getting a left flanking infantry and a right flanking infantry on each side of it. Now, obviously, I actually don't think we know for sure what strength the left and right flanking infantry are, but I strongly assume it's 1 strength. Otherwise, this card would be insanely broken. So I think we can assume it's going to play for a 3 with 2 1 strength bodies next to it, so a 5 for 4 still. But now it has a bonded ability as well, which means that if you play another one, then it's getting +3. So it's first one is a 5/4, the second one is an 8/4. But it's not about the sheer value from the card that's important here. It's the fact that you're swarming the board. So you're improving your draw, you're improving your Meave, you're improving your Talisman, all these sort of cards. So I think this card could be very strong in Swarm decks, and actually quite an important part of it. Like, imagine you go Adalia into Profog Infantry, then you play a Profog Infantry, you have 7 units on your side of the board, and then you slam Drork. You can recycle all the ones with your Revenants, and you just have a lot of damage ready. So, I mean, against some decks like Skellige, they can probably damage most of it down, but there are some decks that struggle to deal with them efficiently, so yeah, that could be very good. Imagine if you're bleeding AQ, for instance, and you start with this, like, what are they going to do? I guess they could go like Crimson Curse, but it's kind of slow. If Crimson Curse hits a 1-point unit, you just like use your Revenant to kill it and spawn another one. So I think this is going to be cool, and maybe make Draw come back into the meta, which would be very nice to see. Then we got Arbalest. And this card used to be... So there was a time, I think that was during the last challenge of Gwent. This card was absolutely broken. I remember I made a deck together with King Chess used for the tournament, where you just completely over-swarmed your board with engines. You were running Portal for these as well. And I think you were running Burn and Roach as well, so you could just play so many engines in so few turns. And when you did that, like, the opponent just couldn't do anything really. Completely engine owner. But now Portal got nerfed, this card got nerfed, and this was very, very bad for a long time. Now it's getting a buff. It's going to be 4 power. I think it should still be 4 provision as well. I think it should get a double buff, then it would actually be a good card. Now for 5 provision, I still think it's just too expensive. But maybe. Who knows? Maybe some decks will start running it. But no, I'm only drinking water, guys. No vodka for me. Siege Tower. Vitality and boost change from 3 to 4. Okay. That's this one, I think. So now it's going to be a 9 for 5? No, 8. 8 for 5. That is good. It makes it easier to run a deck with the scenario, right? Where you're playing Siege, you want some good Siege engines, and I mean, this is definitely making it a lot better. So yeah, I think this is a pretty okay change. It seems a little bit random, not really much synergy with the rest of the stuff, but I don't mind it. Cool change, I'm sure. Then we have the last NR change, which is Inspired Seal. Oh, we have to go in here. So, Inspired Seal is doing the same thing, but it's now boosting by 2 instead of 1. Again, this is a huge, huge, huge change. This is not only about giving the deck 3 more points, which is actually already a massive buff. Like, you're making the deck play for twice as many points. The leader play for twice as many points. But you're also giving more value to cards like Prince and Says and Selkirk, because these are the sort of cards that you want to use your leader charges on to make them deal damage instantly. And now, instead of them coming down as 5 points, well, 6 points with leader, they will now come down to 7. So when they're dueling, that 1 point is worth 1 additional point. So you're already boosting the deck by 3, but potentially 2 additional points whenever you duel, right? So it's potentially a 5-point buff to this deck, which is a lot, which is a huge, huge, huge buff. So together with the Faltus change, maybe we'll see Inspired Seal together with Commanders become a meta again, potentially even high tier meta. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, at least. And then we got another change here, which I also really, really much like. Whoops. There we go. So the next change we got is Invigorate. And this change means that now, instead of boosting all units in your hand by 1, you will be able to boost 5 cards by 1 twice. At first glance, you might be like, okay, that's basically the same, right? Because, you know, you have 10 cards in your hand, you're boosting all of them by 1. That's the same as boosting 5 units by 1 twice, right? It's the same. And that is somewhat true. The ceiling of this ability is almost the same. It's 10 points. But there are a few big differences. First of all, it was very awkward to be playing this leader previously because in round 1, you don't really want to use your leader ability. So you go into round 2. But now what happens if round 1 ran very deep? Then when you use your leader ability, you might only have 6 or 7 cards in your hand, and you will only get that value from it. So that's kind of bad. Now instead, you will be able to go into round 2 with only 5 cards left, and you can still get full value from it. And yes, I do believe you can choose the cards you want to boost. So it's just very strong. Like 10 points from your leader that can protect engines and stuff is good. But also, you have some cards that synergize with this. For instance, you have Skax, which is probably like the most obvious card you want to buff. So if you buff Skax, she's already dealing 2 damage. So essentially that makes Skax an 8 for 8, you could argue, right? But obviously we want to be playing Agitators as well, some other buff card, and in theory this card can just end up dealing a lot of damage. So yeah, I mean, and you have the same thing with Aglay, although Aglay is a little bit more of a meme card, I think. But in theory, you can use it on her as well to get value. But I think mostly you just want to use it with Engines and Skax, and that's all you really want to use your leader for. Then we have an Oak buff, and I think this is actually how Oak used to be. Oak used to be 8 strength, now it's 8 again, after being 7 for quite a while. This card used to be very strong, it got nerfed a bunch of times, and it kind of just fell out of the meta. Is it going to be good now? So King Chess always makes fun of me, because he claims that when this card came out, I was like, it's kind of bad, like it's 8 points, and you know, you need to play like 4 or 5 units to get value from it. It turned out to be completely meta, right? One of the strongest cards of the patch. So maybe I'm kind of underrating it again. But I do think that it's still a little bit meh. But maybe with a few more, like it's a lot more playable now for sure. But is it better than the card they already have? Not sure. But you know, it's not far from being strong at least. So maybe it's just one more set it needs, and maybe this is actually enough to make it see play. Then we got the Neophytes. And this is also a very interesting buff, because Neophyte is a card that never really saw play. Like 4 for 4 is just really bad. But now it's actually has an order ability on both of them. So now you can transform elves into 3 strength. I don't think we have any 1 strength elves, but we have a lot of 2 strength elves. And, you know, being able to transform them into Deadeyes can be quite powerful. First of all, you can kind of tank random damage. As you just randomly hit your elves, you just transform them. Second of all, then this synergizes with your Verno that can deal damage equal to your amount of Elven Deadeyes. So it can, in theory, be worth even more points. But it's also just a buff to a stratagem, right? Because maybe you still don't want to run this card on its own. Maybe you will. But at the very least, if you play this card, then instead of this just being a 4-point play, this is a play that threatens to be 6 points, which is all of a sudden really good. Obviously, they're easy to kill, but maybe you only manage to transform one of them, and then you still play a 5 for 4. So, and you have some elf synergy, right? So I think this is a nice change. It's going to be a lot stronger now for sure. Alright. So, next up, we got Monroe. Just take a quick look at Monroe. Monroe is getting the simple change that now instead of doing this on deploy, it is now it now has seal and order, right? So it just means that if you don't have any rowdy draws on your board, then you can play Monroe first, and then you can play the rowdy dwarfs, and then you can transform them. But you know, like, then what if you play this and then he dies, right? And you play the 6 for 12. It's just a bad card. It's, yeah. I don't know. Dwarfs need something else than this change to be viable, that's for sure. Then we have Reihed Vanguard. I think it's this guy. So it now starts at 2 base, I believe. which you could wonder why this has to be like so low base compared to the save trackers that start at 4, but I guess also easier to include than crimes. The thing with this card is that if you want to start with this, it means you're not starting with your Sword Masters, which are also cards you want to play early. So it's kind of hard to play like great value from these while also sequencing other cards perfectly. But I guess you can run like pretty much all in elves, so if you do that, I mean, I guess this card will quite often be 7, 8, 9, 10 points, which is good, right? But yeah, I agree. Like most of the time people are playing traps, right, and not full-on elf, and then this is just not good. But I mean, maybe if like full-on elf became meta, you would probably also run this card. Moving on, we got Cat Witcher Adept. Which is this one. So now it is getting 1 additional power, so it's 4 power. Give an enemy unit bleeding with the duration equal to the number of units in that row, in that unit's row. Or we can give a ally unit vitality. Okay. So any sort of row stack or swarm on either your on the opponent's side of the board, you can kind of take advantage of. As a 4/4, I think this card is okay. Like, I didn't see any player 3/4, right? You have to remember that. And you have to remember that 1 vitality, 1 bleeding isn't equal to 1 point of damage a bleeding. Damage a boost, because it takes time. It's slow. If you could play this card late and it just boosted instead, you would definitely run it, right? Because like you would just go into the end of the round, the opponent plays an engine, boom, kill it. Or you just play this as finisher, plus 8 points. Troll fight is great. But now you can't really wait for them to row stack all that much, and you don't have time to row stack all that much yourself, because then their vitality or the bleeding doesn't have time to work. So fundamentally, I think this card is flawed. I would much rather that they change the bleeding and vitality to boost and damage, and then made it maybe like 1 or 2 strength. I think that could be interesting. For now, this card is, not very good. It's better. It's closer to achieve decent value, but I'm not sure you would run it. Maybe as a one-off, but not much more than that. So if you're running Redea, you probably run this card, right? But as like some sort of all-in archetype, I think they're probably better options. Then we have the... That's actually all for Skytel. Then moving on to Nilfgaard, we have Morfran. Actually, we have to go into leaders there. So we're just getting a buff here from 6 to 7. Yeah, I think this is still kind of underwhelming. Not really sure. Like 7-point leader, sure you can draw some cards, some synergies. It's definitely a correct thing to buff it. It was bad before, but I'm not sure if 1 extra strength is gonna make it see much play either. Maybe if it got another buff it would, but it's still far from being strong right now. Then we got Lockdown. I guess we also need to go into leader abilities here. And yeah, I mean, guys, I could go on for actually imprisonment, Lockdown. I could have a very long rant about this ability. I'm not going to do that. I do agree that the ability we had before for Lockdown was problematic, but this ability is really, really bad. I've said that before. I will continue to say that. I think this is super, super far away from seeing any sort of competitive play. Even casual play. I think it's just fundamentally bad. And I would love to see them change this into some sort of different ability. But, I mean, I think they're probably, maybe they're happy with the way that it is now. I don't know. But for now, it's just so easy to play around and so easy to end up with a almost dead leader. And for 13 or 14 provision at this now, it's just not worth it. Like, maybe if you made this like 20 provision, you could consider it. But right now, it's just bad. Quite simply just bad. Then we have some buffs coming in, I think. We have Damien. And Damien is getting a buff from 5 to 6 strength. Again, as mentioned several times before already today, then the change from 5 to 6 is huge. It means it's much easier to make it survive. But then, and it was actually also King Chess who pointed this out to me, why would you play this leader when all the leader abilities are trash? And I was kind of like, huh, that's actually true. Like, I mean, okay, you can log another unit. Sure, boosted by 2. Double cross is probably good, but like the thing is, you want to have a leader that can like protect it, right? The only leader that can protect this is Imperial Formation. And sure, get 6 extra points. Woohoo! You play a 12 for 11, right? It's terrible. It's good with Enslave. It can be good with Double Quarters. It can be good with Imposter. But these decks don't help you support it to protect it. And can you actually protect? Like, if you cannot protect it, would you then ever play a 6 for 11? I don't know. I doubt it. But obviously, like, the effect can be strong on some of these leaders. You can protect it with Imperial Formation's passive ability. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Imperial Formation is also just terrible, right? 6 points. Woohoo! Then what? Like, it's the payoff just isn't there, I don't think. It really isn't. Okay, Stefan. So I think Stefan is... They should probably have given Stefan the same treatment if they gave Damien instead of this. Like, boosting it, reducing his provision from 10 to 9 is good if you're playing a Nova deck, I guess. Or just in general making him a little bit cheaper to include. But, you know, 5 for 10, you need to run some support for him. He's weak to movement. There's just so many things about this Stefanko that doesn't really make him seem very appealing. The ability can be very strong if it goes off. But right now, I don't think he will see much play. But to stay positive, we are getting buffs to Soldier's Form. And for those of you who don't like, are kind of new to the game or whatever, like I used to love this archetype in the beta. I think I played this deck like a few thousand games with it. I really loved it. And this ability just used to be on a bronze card. So like you could play multiple of these and you can resurrect them to play even more of them. They were called sentries. It was just such a nice deck. And what we have right now is just nothing in comparison to that. Ream being changed from 7 to 6 provision is good. But the supporting card, you know, sure you have a leader now that supports it, but the card is just not like... Sure, you can maybe play it for like, what, 8 points sometimes. You're like, woohoo, 8 points from this. And like, I mean, sure, if you play like all-in Swarm Mage, you can get like 12, 14, 16 points from it. That's very good. But you have to play so many bad cards to make it worth it. And especially coming with a raid. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. Hope you had a nice stream. I assume you went over the patch notes as well. Let me know what you think about that. I'm personally very excited about a lot of the changes. But the Nilfgaard ones, they seem rather underwhelming right now, not gonna lie. Alright. So, next up, we have Vigref, and this is another Soldier Synergy card. I don't want to be too pessimistic, guys, but this card is still just so bad. Like, 3 for 7, you can trigger some bronze abilities, but it requires you to hold your bronze cards around 3 as well, and if you kill your bronze card, you're playing a 3 for 7. Like, this card is just so meh. It could get another 2 or 3 point stat boost, and it would still be meh. I don't know. I think it's very cool they're buffing Soldier Swarm. And of course, we cannot look at all these changes individually because all of it kind of adds up. And maybe I could be completely wrong. Maybe these changes will just make Soldier Swarm Omega broken. I strongly doubt it. If I'm wrong, you can clip this and you can all laugh at me. But I think they need more significant buffs than this to be a playable archetype at any respectable level. I think we need to have more good bronze soldiers, and we need to have some more high-end soldiers that have good payoffs on deploy. And Katsinti coming with us up. Thanks a lot, man. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying the stream. Really, really appreciate it. All right. Then we have Vivian. Vivian. And this is the tab race, so this is this one, I guess. So units power to its provision cost. Now it's 4 for 9. That's not bad. That's actually not bad. Like, use this card on a 5p unit. I guess it sets the unit's power, not boosting by it, right? Okay, so what would you use this on? So you would use it on strong, like on high P cards that have strong deploy abilities but low base. So okay, so let's say you have a 4 for 9. If you use it on, and let's just try to look for Nilfgaard decks here. Nilfgaard cards. You could use it on Vatir, but Vatir would always die, so you don't really want to use that as your reliable target. If you use it on Usurper, you're getting 6 points of value, and you have a 4 for 9, so it's a 10 for 9, I guess. No, sorry. Yeah, isn't that correct? Yeah, it's a 10 for 9. Ramon would also be a 10 for 9. This would be an 11 for 9, 11 for 9. You have a few targets. Like, if you're already running Leo and Vincent, I mean, it's probably a decent point slam card. But the issue is that these cards quite often want to be played late. I guess that's not the case for Ramon. Yeah, maybe. Any neutrals? I mean, there could be some neutrals in theory. Professional, Poet, Triss. I mean, you have some decent targets. Erden as well. The issue is that these sort of cards, like if they get killed, then you might have a very bad card. But I guess you're improving the floor of the card now, so maybe it'll be a lot more playable. I'm just gonna get some more water, guys. I'll be back in a minute. Alright. I am back. So, where were we? Masquerade Ball will now only progress for aristocrats played on your side of the battlefield. Obviously, in case you haven't seen this change before, you'll probably all have. This is a massive change. And I'm sure all of you already know what Ball does. But obviously, it is like it used to be the most expensive card in the game. Incredibly powerful effect. Yeah, I mean, this is a big nerf because now it doesn't work with Roderick and Joachim, and they were the best triggers for Ball. So the way I see it, there are two options. What will happen to Nilfgaard now? One option is that they adapt to the Ball change, and they basically start playing all the bronze aristocrats. They are kind of bad on their own, and you will be much more vulnerable to being bled, but you will still have a really strong long round. Alternatively, they kick Ball and they stick to their current deck, and then they add 2 more high-end gold cards instead of Ball. And honestly, I don't think either solution will make for a very good deck. That being said, I don't mind that Ball is getting nerfed. Because it was very oppressive. It has been a very strong card for a very long time. I think it's good that they are changing it, but this is killing the card, at least in its current form. Maybe in some future patches where we'll get more aristocrats that can trigger it. Yeah, I mean, maybe it could be good again. But for now, I'm not very convinced. Which is also fine. I'm not going to miss Ball. It's still the most expensive, right? Okay, yeah, it's still costing 15. I was kind of assuming they would also give it some sort of provision buff to compensate, but nope. Then Emir's getting a change. So now let's find Emir. There we go. So Emir is now still drawing a card. Yeah. It now has Seal. And now you have to click the ability, right? So to season 1 point enemy unit with spying, you have to you have to click it, which can be an advantage because you can select now, and if devotion, it works every turn. The issue with Ymir is that he's kind of bad. You need a more powerful effect than this: draw a card and move it to the bottom of your deck. It's not very relevant that you put it to the bottom of your deck in round 3. And sure, you can maybe improve your hand, but it's rarely rarely it's going to have much of an impact. I think this would be much better if you could deal damage with this. Like, if this card would be very strong, it would say, deal 2 or 3 damage to a unit and give it spying on deploy. And then you have this seal ability to join units, right? This means that you can play this card maybe for like 9 points on deploy. Then, if you manage to set up a 1-point unit on the opponent's side of the board, you can then steal it with this card right away. So that means that this card on its own will be strong, and then you can play some supporting cards, some emissaries, some informants, to make it even better, right? But right now, yeah, it's not very good. Or maybe logger units as well. Like, there are plenty of opportunities. I don't get why they want to give it this deployability. The deployability just doesn't really suit the deck very well, in my opinion. And it should, yeah, I think they should buff it somehow, other than what they're doing here. Then we have the Combat Engineer. Okay, this is the soldier synergy, guys. Combat Engineer is now not only a human, it is also a soldier. Doesn't quite look like a soldier, but I will take any soldiers I can get. If you control an artifact, boost self by 3. This is now a 7 for 4 if you have an artifact. And I guess, like, what sort of... Do you get some new artifacts from Nilfgaard? I actually can't remember. I mean, the card is not very exciting, right? But, I mean, 7 for 4 isn't bad. I think it would be cooler if it could boost something. Boost something rather than just boost itself. It's true that it works with Rygref. Ball and location, that is true. But, yeah. It's, yeah, I mean, maybe. But it's just kind of boring, right? It's not very exciting card. Then we got Toussaint Knight Errant. No? Okay, there it is. So this had a ceiling of being a 6 for 4 before, now it has a ceiling of being a 7 for 4. If you can damage a unit with at least 6 power. Otherwise it's a 5. Otherwise it's a 4. Otherwise it's 5 for 4 now, right? So it's worst case 5 for 4, best case it's 7 for 4 now. Which is not bad. Is this also a soldier now? It's not. Okay. This should be a soldier as well, right? Surely a knight is also a soldier, no? Is that not how it works? It looks like a soldier to me. But yeah, I don't know. This is this could use a buff, I think. I mean, it got a buff, but I think like if you want to make this good, then make it a soldier as well, because that's clearly the archetype you're trying to push. Then we have the Rico. And Rico is a weird one. I can't actually remember what is going to be, like, why this is going to have an impact. So, right now, Rico will also change his power when he's in your deck. So right now, he says, whenever a opponent plays a unit while Rico is in your hand, set its power equal to that unit's power. So I guess the difference is that before, if you used a tutor to get access to a Rico, then he would just be a 1-point unit. But now, if you use a tutor to get access to him, either Joachim or Niromancy or Roderick or whatever, then he will play for big points. And like, I think the reason he's not seeing any plays because he's like 6p, kind of awkward provision slot, that sort of stuff. But you know, if you play this card and like you're playing against a deck that's playing Vi, for instance, against Skellige, against Syndicate with a big Jackal, like this card could potentially be very good value. But it might just be not consistent enough. But it's a card I would love to see more play. Like it's definitely interesting design, and you know, I think it would be good. I mean, it's good that they're trying to buff it, make it more viable for sure. Will there also be a Syndicate starter deck? I have no idea. I think that's my honest answer on that one. I actually thought there was a Syndicate starter deck, but it sounds like there isn't. Okay, moving on to Syndicate. So, what is this card even doing? attack. Ally Chemist. Okay. So this card used to boost an allied unit by 2 and give it poison. Now it got seal and gain coins. Is that correct? So it's basically... Yeah, okay. So this is basically a 6 for 4, I guess. If you say that 1 coin is worth 1 point, you could argue coins are worth more, but for the sake of the math here, we'll just say 6 for 4 still, but you got seal, so you can float it. And you have some synergies with the failed experiment. Yeah. Not quite convinced, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's okay. I don't mind the change. Giving it seal makes it a bit more versatile, a bit more flexible. The sealing is still the same. Yeah, sure. And I guess you don't have to use it, right? Like if you have 1 unit on the board, you don't have to use it to poison. If like you don't want to poison it for some reason. Then we got the Bosoldi brothers. So both of them are now getting a spend ability. So right now we have a 7 for 7 and a 7 for 7. If you play them as the first brother, the second brother will either be a 10 for 7 or a 9 for 7. And obviously this one can deal damage, this one will just give you coins. But now they are also spenders. They're not great spenders because bleeding and vitality aren't the best way of spending coins, but they can make your coins worth points, which is good. So the question is, do you want to commit to mid-range cards where you have to draw both of them to find good value? Playing one of them is not terrible either, but like it's you only really like want to play them if you can consistently play both of them. And yeah, I mean, one important thing for Syndicate is that their cards can spend coins without having to keep bad cards in hand, so maybe. But yeah, they don't seem amazing still. But definitely more of consideration to include them in your deck now. And then we got a big one here, guys. Big change. Salamander Mage is now going to have the Mage tag. I think this has absolutely zero impact on the game, but it is kind of weird that we have a Mage that does not have the Mage tag. If there is some synergy that I'm missing, then feel free to enlighten me, but I don't think this is going to change anything. Synergy with Fringilla Vigo. What's that card even doing? What is that card even doing? Damage an enemy unit by 2. Increase the number of targets by 1 for each adjacent mage. Right. This is the big synergy I missed. So yeah, this is going to be meta changing, guys. That's the card in case anyone is unaware. I don't think this is going to have any sort of real impact, but you know. Roland tooltip now correctly specifies that a unit needs to gain poison in order to gain coins. That's fine. That's just some tooltip things. We don't want to check it. We don't want to spend too much time on that. Then we have Cleaver. I'm sure all of you know Cleaver as well. Cleaver was one of the strongest cards the last 2 patches. Very high base value, and the ability to spend, set up crown splitter pockets for your drill is just very strong. Quite often this card ate a heat wave or Morgvark, stuff like that. So obviously not something that the opponent is like very happy about seeing you playing this card. But now it lost 2 armor. And you could say, you know what, it's just armor. Armor is not really worth any points, it's not a big deal. But if you play this card rather than you set up, it goes to 5 now. And going to 5 means it'll place directly into these sort of cheap removal cards like Boiling Oil, like Rebuke, etc. So it's now a lot easier to remove for a lot of decks without having to commit a big card. And if you don't have to spend toll removal on Cleaver, well, you have toll removal for Jackal or for Jack or something like that. And the card is still decent. Like, it's not like it's completely unplayable or anything. Like, again, it still plays for the same sort of value if you don't have damage to kill it. And you can still use it to spam Crown Splitters to get good drill value, but it's a lot easier to answer now, which I think is good. The card was just too strong before. Okay. Then we have Horson Jr. And I think this is a card I actually very much like as well. So Horson Jr. It's still the same ability in theory, but now you can damage... So basically, if you don't have Devotion, the card will pretty much do the same thing. But if you have Devotion, now you can damage any unit. And that makes a big difference, because you didn't... Like, this card is strong. This card is really, really strong, but you didn't really want to play it earlier, because sometimes you get into Skellige and then you just have this 5 for 10 card. That was really bad. But now, being able to damage any unit just means that it's consistently an 11 for 10 that can kill stuff, can give you coins, can even spend if you needed to. If the opponent for some reason is playing Killy without using any leader charges, you can just play this, deal 6 damage, and finish it off with the Fee ability. This card on its own might actually be enough for Syndicate to start playing Devotion with Bang instead of Nigromancy. So yeah, like Devotion Syndicate is definitely a thing after this change, in my opinion. Honest question, have you ever played Cleaver into an Ancrate Longship? I really don't think I did. No, so the thing is that quite often what happens is that on a Syndicate, if you win round 1, you quite often just bleed, and quite often you do win round 1, so you go into round 2 and then you just bleed with it. And if you bleed with it, then you don't have an opportunity to play a Longship first. Then we have Halfling. I don't like this change. I don't mind that they're nerfing the card, but I don't like how they're doing it. So Halfling now lost its Intimidate tag, but it's now 4 points instead. It means that in this current build, you would probably still be able to play Halfling that would play for like probably around 8 or 9 points on average in round 1, which is still good. You know, like 8 or 9 points for 5 duration, that's not bad. But it's not an engine anymore. And, you know, that's a lot of points lost. I think the most elegant change to this card would be reducing its base power to 2 instead of 3, and then keeping the Intimidate. That way it would be easy to kill when it comes down, it's a little bit slower, but still has like a ceiling, feels like an engine to play. I don't like this change too much. It's kind of sad to lose this unique design the card had. But it's not like I don't mind that Syndicate is a little bit weaker now. It's not like I enjoy it going on blue against Syndicate and then just play Halfling just and be like, hey, see you in 30 points, kid. So, you know, it is what it is. I like the end result. I don't like how they got there. Shinmiri is copying your stream layout. Sue him. I will definitely sue Shinmiri. Definitely. What a cheater. But no, I'm actually kind of proud of this stream layout. I think it works kind of well. I hope you guys think so as well. I spent way too much time trying to make it work, at least. Then we have the Damnation. Damage 3 adjacent units by 2 for every enemy unit destroyed. Spawn fires 1 Sealot on the opposite row. So this card has 6 damage and potentially 6 spawns, which just makes it 12 for 8, right? Now the card is getting buffed, so it is instead of a 12 for 8, it's a 12 for 7. But obviously that's not how many points it plays for, right? Because quite often you won't have enough targets to kill, but you always get the 6 damage. So absolutely worst case, I mean, you don't always get that, but let's say the opponent has enough units, then you always get 6 points of damage. And then if you can just kill 1 unit, you have an 8 for 7. That's not terrible. But that being said, you probably want to play this in a deck where you can like damage stuff to actually set it up and stuff. Not really sure what sort of deck this would fit into, but the card itself is not bad, I don't think. Oh, actually, it also has to be adjacent. I completely missed that. I thought it was just damage 3 units. Adjacent unit obviously makes it a lot worse. So, I mean, if all you're playing is a Raka Swarm, sure, go ahead play this card. Otherwise, probably not. Probably not. Well done the layout. Thanks. Appreciate that. Then we got Greater Buddhas. Greater Brothers. So now this card has armor on 5 base instead of 4. Don't really know what to say about this card, to be honest. Sure, that's fine. I still don't know what sort of deck you want to play this into. I have a few times been playing this in my hidden cache deck because I had 7 provisions left, and like the 7 provisions are just terrible. Other than Saul, of course, but you're already running him. But it's just a sort of filler card to just like, ugh, I need to play something, maybe a Slime and Greater Buddhas, and maybe just lose a few games because of that. It's fine, it's getting a buff, but I don't really see if it's going to... I don't really see how it's going to make a comeback, because, yeah, it's just not that great. Then we're getting a big change here, and that's actually not sarcastic this time, guys. Professor is going from 3 damage to 4 damage. So this means if you just play this card with no bounty or anything like that, you have 6 base, deal 4 damage. If you compare that to a card like Milan, which is 4, deal 4 for 9, then this is probably better. But that's not the reason why you're playing this card. The reason why you're playing it is because you're also giving bounty to a unit. And quite often what will happen is that the opponent will play a bronze engine, such as a sergeant, slave hunter, just a hunter. Like there's so many 4P engines, almost all factions play some of them. If you then just respond with Professor right away, then you're playing 10 points of value and you're gaining 4 coins. So you're technically playing 14 for 11. But obviously you don't have to play it like that, right? If you have something like a horse on your deck as well, or you have a drill, something like that, you could potentially also use it on, you know, a card you just want to kill with your drill later on. I think this card is going to be very strong, and the Syndicate decks we are going to see that are going to be good are probably going to include Professor. At least they have, like at least it's a very good card. It's a card you need to consider when building your deck. Unconditional 14 for 11. Yeah, true. But no, I actually think this is pretty good. And I'm pretty excited to try to see to make this work. Like, what are people going to play for Syndicate next patch? Is still going to be Lined Pockets? Are people going to go back to Hidden Cache? Are they going to try Swarm? Are they going to try Tribute decks? Like, this could also work in a Tribute deck. Crozier is saying Syndicate Devotion with Professor and Horson. Yeah, I mean, like, there are just so many options. Like, that's the sort of thing that excites me when they buff sort of these sort of underplayed cards that give them some really powerful effects, and you have to think, okay, how do I want to build a deck with it? I'm just glad I don't have to compete in any tournaments next season, because it's probably going to take a while to figure out the meta. Then we have Pirates. It's like this. No? Oh, it's the lead ability. There we go. Spawn a Siege Jackal on an allied row and gain 4 coins. Now it's letting you spawn 2 Siege Jackals instead. This is a nice change, because the issue before was that you want to play Jackals when you're at full coins, right? And when you're not at full coins, then it feels bad to play Jackal. Like, maybe let's say you have 5 coins, you play Leader, get Jackal out, go to 9 coins, you get your boat out. But then you don't really want to spend with your Jackal because you want to get your boat out. So you hold, then they kill your Jackal, and then you're like, oh, me sad. But with this change, you can just go to 9 coins, then you can just run very, very few spenders in your deck, because you know that whenever you need to spend coins, you just use the Leader chat and then spend. That makes this Leader interesting, I think. Although, is it really better on something like Line Pockets, Off the Books, Hidden Cache? I kind of doubt it. But the design is kind of fine. But maybe it should be like... Maybe you should spawn a CJ and gain like 1 coin as well. Then it's just like a small buff. Maybe that coin will be irrelevant if you want to get out the boat, but it's just a little bit more value. These leaders pretty decent as control unit list with Gord and Huge Last Say. Yeah, potentially. Like, you can do stuff with them for sure. Yeah, you can definitely do stuff with them. And I could see Pirates Cove seeing some play, but... And maybe there's also some synergies with Collusion as well. But I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be that strong. We will have to wait and see, but that's also interesting for sure. We still have a few more cards. So then we have Boris. This card was quite popular when it came out, I think. So Boris is now power change from 3 to 5. That's a double buff. So now it's a 5 that deal 3, so it's an 8 fight, and if you kill something, it's an 11 fight. If they had changed the damage to 4, this card would have been better, I think. But just increasing the base power, like 3 damage is rarely doing anything. If you don't have any like other sort of damage cards, and like how often can you actually kill a 3-point unit? Not sure. Like it kind of creates this card is getting a double buff, and you're still not sure if you want to play it. I think maybe if they had buffed the base to 4, maybe and the damage to 4, maybe that would be too strong. Maybe just buffing the damage to 4 and then leave it like this. And maybe the card is decent now, but yeah. It's true, like the floor is a lot better, right? Like you never, like playing an 8 fate is not terrible, but you kind of want to get the death blow off consistently for it to be a good card, I think. Then we have Grand Helvete. No? There you go. So now this card is power change from 5 to 6. Okay. Again, big change. It's much harder to kill now. It comes down as a 10 for 10. It gives you Swarm, hard to kill. If you can generate coins later on, it will be even harder to kill. Well, not harder to kill, but it will be like, do you want to target this engine? Well, then you have to invest some serious things to kill it. And if they don't, you know, you'll just be able to spawn a lot. So yeah, it's a big buff for Swarm decks, I think. It'll be interesting to see if this will push Swarm back into playability. I like the change. I like the change. Then we got Sacred Flame. Added the Fire Swarm category. That makes sense as well. First of all, it's like pretty lore-friendly, right? That a Sacred Flame is Fire Swarm. And then the only synergy I can think of is Jack, which is right here. In his final form, then you gain 1 coin whenever you play a Fire Swarm unit. So you play this guy, and then if you follow up with your with this Sacred Flame, then you're also getting another coin, right? So it's maybe just worth 1 point every second game or so. Then we got Tiger's Eye. Tiger's Eye is now giving you 5 coins instead of 4 coins. And this is kind of interesting because obviously it's plus one coin, so that's a buff. And usually we say that coins are worth slightly more than points. So if that's true, then this card should just be better than TA. The issue, however, is that quite often you use your, like you quite often get enough coins, go to 9 coins, then you have to spend all of your points on something like a Jackal round 1, because you don't want to go with your gold cards that can deal damage with your coins. And if that's the case round 1, then instead of giving you 5 points on the board, it's giving you 5 additional points in Jackal that might go to 15 instead of 10, or 20 instead of 15, or whatever. And if the opponent's running Tall Punish, you're just making yourself more vulnerable to that. That being said, in something like Hidden Cash, you know, just being able to start with Tiger's Eye, get your soul down, maybe play a fish tech next, go to 9 coins, then you can play your Jackal. Like, that sounds rather appealing. So it's strong, but you have to be careful you don't end up spending too many coins on one spender. So that's something you need to keep in mind. But it's a nice buff, and it's definitely going to be a stratagem that's going to see play, I think. And I think that was all of the changes. Then we have some new support for Mac. Sure. New journey, new character. Sure. A lot of rewards to unlock in standard and premium path. Contracts, unlock even more ornaments by playing matches with your favorite outfit. Sure. Story, images drawn from Kundvi Ramus. Dreams about Triss's life added each week. New quests. New starter decks. You can search with Latin letters, sure. Visual improvements for using orders for premium stratagems. Okay, that's pretty cool. Journey story art is now shown correctly on mobile devices, sure. Game boards are now scaled correctly, sure. Dandelion Vainglory is now able to target and destroy saber-toothed tiger stealth. That's kind of nice. That's like a pretty sick play, actually. It's probably still going to be a brick, like 9 out of 10 games, but like that one game where you actually kill Saber, you're gonna feel pretty happy, right? Maybe in some sort of tournament meta where you want to target that deck, this card could see play, but other than that, it's probably just kind of meh. Pitfall Trap will now trigger correctly when an opponent plays a trap. Okay, sure. Siggy will no longer count the unique ganks from the original deck when played by the opponent through Cantrevella. Okay, that's also nice. I was starting to wonder if that was actually intended or not. The Adrenaline's effects will now work correctly for Gerd and Salamander Mage when played from hand. Nice! Finally! Only took a month, but we got there in the end. Really happy that Gerd is going to work as intended now. That's a card that I've been kind of frustrated that it didn't work as intended for quite a while because I wanted to make it work. So yeah, I think that's good. That's very, very good. Yeah, that's a little bit of an incentivize to start playing around with some Skellige again. But anyway, guys, that's it for the patch notes. I was considering if we should play some ladder afterwards, but honestly, we have been going for almost 2 hours now, and I mean, I don't really know why I would play ladder right now. Like, it's